Okay, friends, we are going live. This is my first live chat, very new for me, so bear with me. But one of the things that I wanted to mention to you is this is something really, really, really big that could affect all of us. The port strike that's all along the East Coast that's happening. Well, actually, it's going to be happening on Tuesday, along with some other union workers in this specific field. I wrote some notes down, and feel free to leave a comment or chat or anything if you know more about this whole topic. I recently found out about this yesterday, and I went digging and doing some research, and I startling how much it could affect us. So I wrote some notes down, and I just wanted to share some things with you all about the East Coast port strike that's happening. So these East Coast port workers, this organization that they work for, it's a union. It is the International Longshoremen Association. They are going and strike against their employer, United States Maritime Alliance. So they're going and strike because their contract for pay and everything is going to be up on September 30th. So they're going on strike because they want better pay and better working conditions. And then also there's some new technology that has come about that they do not like. For instance, some automation, which would affect their jobs because, automation, you don't need a person. So there's a lot to this whole thing, but mainly it's about pay, and they're wanting a up to 77% pay increase over the next 6 years. So they're currently making about, just depending on the person, but they're making about $39 an hour, which, in this day and age is pretty good. But with everything, with inflation and everything, they're talking about with inflation, that's just not enough. So those are just a couple things. So they haven't come to an agreement, and they're like, if we don't come to an agreement at the end of this contract, like I said, Tuesday, they say that they're going to walk out, not come to work, and go on strike. So you're probably thinking, how is this a big deal? How is this going to affect me? Well, it does affect you because there are a plethora of things that get imported and exported from these ports along the East Coast. And these ports that are going to be closing, it's going to be about 36 of these ports that are shut down. And there are so many things which I will list to you in my notes that I have that come imported and exported from these ports that definitely affect us. So one of the things is, actually many of the things that's going to affect us is the supply chain. And you probably remember during COVID how the supply chain was through the roof. It was insane. We couldn't get stuff. Remember the whole thing with the toilet paper, and we couldn't get lumber, certain supplies, and we see the effect of that today. I mean, look how much lumber has gone up since even 4 or 5 years ago. So all of this is definitely something to keep your eye on and to have a heads up about, because it's definitely going to affect you. So some things that they mentioned that get imported and exported from this whole port, these 36 ports, which is about 50% of the things that we get imported and exported. We also have in the Gulf Coast, which would be Newport and I think LA, but this is 50%, which goes from Massachusetts all the way down. I mean, it covers a vast variety of land here. But some of the things that are affected would be food. They're talking about bananas, they're talking about citrus, cocoa beans, they're talking about petroleum, and we use a lot of petroleum for a lot of different things. We're coming up onto getting ready to be fall and winter time. I live in the south here in Florida, so it doesn't get cold until November. But for people who live in the northeast, they need petroleum to heat their homes. We need it for our cars. Generating electricity, powering machines. So there's a plethora of reasons why we need petroleum. Is to make plastic, to produce different things. So there's a lot of reasons why this would definitely affect us. Like I had mentioned, the supply chain will be through the roof. We won't be able to get certain things that causes supply and demand. Things inflate prices. You think prices are expensive now. It's definitely going to affect that. they're saying that it's going to affect about $5 billion, or cost the United States $5 billion a day. That is a ton of money. $5 billion a day if they go on strike, and no telling how long this is going to be if they don't come to an agreement on everything. Some other things that are affected by this port strike is there are some cars that get imported, exported if they're in containers. We also have cotton, wood, copper, some pharmaceuticals. So these are things that we heavily rely on just to get by daily. And that brings me to a point. I did a video about being self-sufficient, and hi, thank you. I see you guys' comments are coming through. I had made a video about how we should be somewhat self-sufficient. I was talking about gardening and different things, and it's definitely going to affect some of the food, like I mentioned about oranges and also bananas. There's some other things, but I talked about being self-sufficient, and it's so important that we don't rely on these things as much as we should. We should be able to rely on ourselves for some things, not every single thing. Another thing that I realized is how much we rely on things to be imported to us, how much we are reliable, or we rely on things that are overseas. It is just purely amazing how we can't even rely on the United States for things. Things keep coming imported in, and that just woke me up. I mean, cotton, petroleum, wood, copper, pharmaceuticals, things of that sort. I mean, it's just purely amazing the things that we rely on to come over here. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that, just to start stocking up, be prepared, look ahead for things. This is not going to be good for us, especially if these things go for a long period of time. The strike goes for a long period of time. It's going to be very expensive for employers, because some of these trucks, these people that rely on these dock workers to load their trucks, if they're waiting long periods of time, I mean, they're not going to need their workers, they're not going to need their employees, so they're going to start laying people off. And then with things getting higher, I mean, it's just not a good thing. So I wanted to give you guys a heads up about what's to come. They're saying October 1st is when they're going to be walking out and everything. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that. It's just not looking good. It is thousands of jobs that are going to be affected by this, like I said. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that. Really consider being more self-sufficient. One thing that I did find very interesting, because this has to do with transportation, we haven't heard very much from Pete Buttigieg, who is the Secretary of Transportation. I guess he's too busy chest feeding. I don't know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but he hasn't said very much, considering he's the secretary of all of this transportation. Biden says he's not going to interfere with forcing them to go back to work, but there are some people that are saying, you know what, this is important. You need to step in, come to agreement, talk to them, because this is going to affect the U.S. economy. I mean, thousands of jobs are going to be affected by this. Everything's going to be backed up. Think about all the fresh foods and fresh things that are on those ships that are being imported in. If they're sitting and waiting for long periods of time, that stuff is not going to be any good. And then we have to wait for it to be, cleaned out, and then get more stuff. So it's just going to back up every single thing. So this is not looking good, friends. You probably haven't seen very much about this. Like I said, I was just informed about it yesterday. I did my research. I'm still learning more about it, because it's very frightening, because we've experienced this before with COVID. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up about that. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. I am on the Shae Report on Instagram. Feel free to leave comments. I'm going to make sure that I keep this up for you guys, this video up for you, this live video on the Shae Report YouTube channel as well. And like I said, be prepared. There's nothing wrong. I know they typically like to shame people, like, oh, you preppers, what are you guys thinking, these preppers, you old time preppers, and you got your garden and this and this and that. there's, with the things that are going on now, it is so smart to be prepared. And with the election around the corner, I mean, just things are just being so weird, things that are happening consistently to this country. It is insane. It's definitely making me think, oh, be prepared, look ahead, know what to do. So like I said, I'll leave this video up for you guys. If you have any comments, questions, anything, feel free to leave me a message, and then also feel free to leave some comments in the comment section. And thank you for joining me in my first live video. Hopefully I'll do this again with more hot topics or things that are important for us. And thank you so much for being here.